Hello everybody, it's Bubs. Now today I am going to be filming my breastfeeding story with you all. It has been requested for a while and I can't believe it's taken me so long to actually film one. To those who are new, I am a mother of 2 kids, a little boy who is about to turn 4 in just a month's time and a little girl who is about to turn 1 in just over a week. My experience breastfeeding my daughter Ayla is going to be different to how it was breastfeeding my son Isaac, because with Isaac obviously I was a first time mother. Before I had Isaac, I knew I wanted to breastfeed just because they just said, you know, breast is best, so I just figured okay. But at the same time I was quite open-minded. I just told myself if I can, I will. They also made it like really precious, which it really is, but then they kind of like miss out all the other stuff because, you know, breastfeeding can also be very unglamorous. Isaac was actually born in Hong Kong, whereas my daughter was born here. My doula, very fortunately, just happened to be a lactation expert. Even before I gave birth, she would come into my apartment to make sure I was ready, and she had like little models. She had like a little baby and, you know, the little fake boobies, and just holding the little boobie and, you know, the baby's mouth and saying how you want to get all the nipple in. The thing about myself is I'm really bad at learning like that. Nothing goes in. I can only learn by doing. I think there's a term for that. I feel really bad for saying this, but when she was being really sweet and doing the demo with the baby and the boob, in my mind was just a monkey with symbols just going. With my son, he ended up being born through a emergency C-section. So you can watch my birth story and my videos all about that. And that was fine really. I'll never actually forget the night the milk came in. I went to bed with, you know, just my preggy boobs. And preggy boobs look awesome, but your milk boobs are like Hulk boobs. And it's funny because my friend Jen, she has the perfect term for describing them. I suddenly woke up with porn star boobs, like boobs that were like up here. The very first night I took Isaac home was probably one of the scariest and most stressful nights of my life. So I was actually so thankful when my doula Edith showed up in my door. I know I was lucky to have Edith with me. The thing is, when it comes to breastfeeding, like I said, because it's a natural phenomenon, a lot of people somehow think that it's gonna come natural too, but the truth is it really is a learning process for both mother and baby. Very fortunately for myself and my baby, and also Edith, it was great for us. I certainly didn't have a problem with milk supply. I'll get to milk supply later, but basically I had lots of milk and my son was thriving. The issue was mentally. I did not enjoy breastfeeding. Prior to Isaac being born, I've just always been a workaholic and I thrived by it. I thrived by being productive. So suddenly having to sit down, I guess just sitting there holding my baby, feeding 1 hour at a time, and then having to do it all over again an hour later, didn't leave me with much time afterwards to do anything productive or even for myself. At the same time, I guess, before I didn't realize how blessed I was of time and spoiled by it, where my husband and I would just very casually just stay up till 4 a.m. and wake up whenever we want in the afternoon, and that was always the norm for us in Hong Kong. And suddenly this baby came along and changed everything for us, where basically time became the most precious commodity. I anticipated change, but I didn't know things would change so much. I had a bit of a identity crisis where I didn't really know who I was. Like looking at the mirror, I didn't recognize my body or anything. At the beginning, it definitely was a love-hate relationship where I didn't enjoy breastfeeding. Obviously because you've just given birth, you've had a cesarean, you know, you're quite exhausted already. Very fortunately for Isaac and I, we were textbook example of a good latch. I don't know, but apparently I had like the perfect nipple. And I'm guessing they say it's a perfect nipple because it's not flat, or, you know, it's not overly big or small, but it just fit with my son's mouth like a jigsaw. And especially with the help of my doula being there, teaching me the perfect latch. But what didn't come natural was me, my mentality, because I didn't have a good experience at the beginning breastfeeding, not because it didn't go well for us. It went really well. It's just I didn't enjoy breastfeeding. And it's also because I just happened to be the breadwinner. So I stressed a lot. My mindset was, if I don't work, then who is? And of course, I just had a baby. I was still recovering from a C-section. I was just completely marinated by my hormones. And I think my doula could tell I was going through blues. The first 6 weeks are always the toughest, but it definitely gets better, especially as you build your milk supply. I actually had an oversupply of milk. And you know, I guess it's a problem to have. It's a good problem because it just meant I had plenty of milk for my son, and so he really thrived. Edith, my doula, believes I had an oversupply was because I pumped too much. You know, when Isaac was born, he spent the first few days of his life in an incubator, so I pumped as much as I could. It didn't occur to me that if I pumped too much, it fools your body into thinking like that's how much your baby needs. So I always had super engorged boobs. Even if it's not my own child crying, when I would hear any crying from a baby, my boobs just go crazy. And before I knew it, you just have these streams like shooting out, almost kind of like bursted pipes, these drain pipes, and it comes out in like 5-6 streams in a nipple. I know it doesn't sound glamorous at all, but this is a reality. If I think back to my whole breastfeeding experience of my son, my milk never actually normalized. I always had to use a breast pad, and each time I do a feeding, I would put a new breast pad in, and by the time I finish, my breast pad would be completely soaked. Even though Isaac was a great drinker, the oversupply actually did give some issues. Feeding sometimes became a bit of a struggle because it was so much. If you try to visualize a baby, a cute little baby, and then like a garden hose just shooting right at him, and he's trying to drink it and it's going everywhere, and he's like choking. It looked exactly like that. So every time I had a letdown, I would practically have to remove him from the breast. I would have to hold the breast pad over just to soak it all in first. So and because I had an oversupply, it just meant that, you know, the baby would be drinking a lot of the fore milk rather than the hind milk. Fore milk is more runnier, whereas the hind milk is thicker. Both are important, the baby needs it, but if the baby drinks too much fore milk, the baby becomes very gassy. And that was my problem with Isaac. Breastfeeding eventually became so much easier. In long run, it became the easier thing because I realized I'm quite lazy. I don't like cleaning bottles, and when it comes to bottles, we all know there's so many parts. We traveled a lot back then, we still do now, but it was very handy to just whip out and boot my child and not have to bring the formula and worry about sterilizing on the go. Now, I eventually fully stopped breastfeeding at 8.5 months, and since from 8 months, he started to get formula. Years later, then I was pregnant with Ayla. And I was actually very optimistic with Ayla. This time we were giving birth in the UK. Unlike Isaac, Ayla was put straight to the breast because she was born vaginally. I remember everything Edith taught me. I thought I forgot, but when you're actually holding your baby, it's crazy how that maternal instinct kicks in. And this time around, I had such a different mentality, and it just tells me that your mentality really is everything. I've done it both ways, where I've had a crappy mentality and I've done it the other way. I can definitely tell you that having a good mentality goes a long way. I enjoyed breastfeeding from day one when it came to Ayla, especially because this time around I've got 2 kids, so when I'm breastfeeding, it really is a chance for me to just sit down with my baby. This time around, it was a much more pleasant experience. I'm back in UK, surrounded by family and friends. I wasn't isolated away, so mentality wise, I was in a much better state. With Ayla, actually, I also had an oversupply problem. It wasn't as extreme as it was with Isaac. I just happened to have quite a lot of milk. For both my children, I actually never needed nipple balm, and I feel terrible saying this because almost all of my mummy friends, they had really bad experiences. That makes me want to cry just thinking about it. And they tell me it was cracking and bleeding. Like, I feel thankful that I never had that problem, but I'm almost guilty, like, when I tell people, like, I'm so sorry. My doula told me, if you have a proper latch, you don't need nipple balm. I have mummy friends of mine who beg to differ. However, I have to say, even though I never had cracked bleeding nipples, The first week or two, the nipples do feel sensitive. I did feel a slight burn. It wasn't excruciating. It was a little uncomfortable, but it was definitely bearable. With Isaac, I always felt like I had to do it in private. Now with Ayla, I feel more comfortable doing it with people in a room. It really depends who's in a room. Sometimes I do it with a cover and sometimes I don't. I remember with Isaac, I was much more self-conscious, whereas second time around, I was like, whatever. I was actually told that with your second child, the chances of them being sick is going to be much higher because the first child will bring back germs from daycare or school. Fortunately, Ayla has never been sick. I think she's been kinda sick once. I have been sick more than her, but so far, touch wood, she has been indestructible. And I would like to believe that it's the antibodies from the breast milk that's giving her the immunity. Now that Ayla is almost 1, I only really feed her 2-3 times a day, so my body isn't making as much milk because she now takes solids. For a while, my life was all about the Lancino breast pads. It means these days I can use the reusable breast pads, which are more like fabric. Overall, I had a really great experience breastfeeding both my kids. The only difference is I didn't handle it so well at the beginning with Isaac. When am I gonna stop? I'll stop when she's ready to stop, or if there's any circumstances. Part of me will always feel guilt when I sort of compare how I dealt with both babies. It just seemed like Ayla was lucky because I dealt with her with a better mindset than I did with her brother. I think it's just guilt that we give ourselves. But then, you know, you just have to be reminded. I look at Isaac and I see how happy and healthy and what a good kid he is. And, you know, I tell myself like, maybe I didn't do as bad as I thought. I know that my bonding with my children goes beyond the breast. A happy mom is a happy baby. I have a friend who tried to breastfeed, who breastfed well, but it made her miserable. Because she felt miserable, her relationship with the father was awful. It wasn't until she moved to formula until she was able to become a better mother. Being a mother is beyond the feeding. There's so much more to it. My advice would be, don't stress so much on routine. And I felt like for Isaac, I was always trying to put him in a box. You know, oh, but why is he up? He should be up at this time. Or, you know, oh, but I just fed him so and so ago. He shouldn't be due for another feed until this time around. I just did it by demand. Because I spent my entire life just living on routine, having a structure. A newborn is not like that. I read so many books. And I can tell you that while it's helpful to gain knowledge, actually, you learn the most through experience. And lastly, the best thing you could do for your child is to remain a loving relationship with the father. So, and I know at the beginning stages of parenthood, it just happens that the majority of the time, the mother may do most of the work. In this case, it'd be fantastic if the father will focus on taking care of the mummy while the mummy takes care of the baby. But don't keep score. One of the worst things you can ever do is to keep score. Just focus on doing the best you can for your child and trust that your husband is doing the best that he could. You both are new at this, and parenthood is honestly like learning a new dance. You will step on each other's toes quite a few times at the beginning, but eventually you guys will get the ribbon and things will be better. Focus on what is best for you, baby. If you need to supplement with some formula, that is okay. If you need to pump, that is okay. If you need help from somebody, that's okay. It's true what they say. Raising a baby takes a village, so don't let the pride get the most of you. And also, you don't get a medal for doing it all by yourself. There's not one book to cater every mother or baby because we're all different. Do what works for you and your child. I think that covers mostly it of my breastfeeding story. It was really nice sitting down and talking to you guys. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please put them down below. I will try my best to answer them, and if not, the Bubs community is so kind and I just know that they will have your back. And it would mean so much if you subscribe, and don't forget to click onto the bell to not miss out on notifications. So I will talk to y'all soon.